Hey, this is Troy from Jake's Bikes. Just going to teach you today how to change a flat tire on the trail when you're out on the road. The basics you're going to need to do it, you're going to want some kind of bag under your seat or on a rack in order to carry the stuff that you're going to need. The tools are going to be, you got a quick stick, which is a one lever tool to change a tire. Some kind of way to put air in that tube, whether it be a frame pump or a CO2 cartridge. CO2 is going to be a compressed air unit that you use to fill the tube and then get you home. And then you're also going to want an extra tube of the tire that you have, the size tire that you have. Some other good things to have in your bag is what's called a tire boot. A tire boot is going to be something that fills or changes where the tube can go. If you get a big gash in your tire, that way that tube can't get through that gash. If you don't have a tube, or if it's just a little tiny puncture, sometimes just doing a patch on that tube is the best way to do it. What I usually recommend is just doing a new tube and being done with that problem. So now we're going to go over changing a tube. So you're out on the road and, oh no, I got a flat tire! So the first thing you want to do is kind of assess, make sure you're not on the trail, you're not in the road, you're not in the way. You want to release the brake. This particular brake is a straight pull brake. So you're going to grab on your brake, pull that noodle apart, and so that you can drop that brake apart. Most road bikes out on the road are going to have a quick release lever, a cam system on the side to release that brake. And we're going to do the rear wheel today because that's the one most people hate doing. Not a big deal. You flip your quick stick, your quick lever, loosen that skewer a little bit. If your bike is equipped with a bolt-on wrench, you're going to want to take a wrench that is that size. The best thing to do is have that bike shifted down all the way in the bottom gear. Roll that wheel out away from the chain. Lay that aside, and then lay your bike on the non-drive side. Again, out of the way, out of other cyclists. Come back, grab your tire, kind of give it an overall check. See if you can see what punctured that tube, what punctured your tire, made that tube go flat. So the next thing you want to do is take your quick stick with like the angle part out and hook that first bead 1. So it'll be insert that quick stick, hook bead 1, and then just what I usually do is just pull right towards me, peel it right off. Some road tires are going to be a little tougher. Just take your time. You're already angry that you got a flat, so there's no reason to ruin anything that you're doing. I always start at the stem, whether you have a Presta valve or a Schrader valve. This particular one is a Schrader valve. I always start there, mark where that tube is, where that stem is on your tire. Pull that tube out, get that stem out of there, and then pull your tube completely out of that tire, and then just lean your tire up somewhere where you can, where it's out of the way again. Take a pump, if you got a frame pump, just hook your frame pump onto that tube, give it a couple of pumps, and what that's going to do is put air in that tube, and you'll be able to check where that air is coming from, if it's a puncture or what's called a pinch flat. A pinch flat is going to look like a snake bite in your tube on the bottom side. And what that usually indicates is that you didn't have enough air in your tube at the first place before you started your ride. So you find your hole in your tube and you go back and hold your stem where it was. And then what I usually do is I mark where that hole was in the tube and then pull my tire completely off the rim and start right where that flat was. Checking the tube, checking the inside of the tire, checking the outside of the tire for what punctured that. Remove anything that could be is what punctured your tire, whether it's glass, a nail, a tack. We've seen some pretty crazy stuff here at the shop. And then take your 4 fingers on the inside of your tire and run your 2 thumbs on the outside of your tire and inspecting the walls of the tire, the top tread of the tire with your thumbs, and the inside of the tire with your 4 fingers. And when you locate that puncture, try to remove as much as you can, as best as you can. If it is a big tear, that's where that tire boot comes into play, and that'll insert right inside that tire and keeps that tube from coming out of where that tear is. So once you've diagnosed what you have for where that puncture was, you're ready to install that tire back on that rim. Make sure your rim strip on the inside of your tire is all covering up the spoke nipples. Like right there, you can see the spoke nipples are exposed. I just use my tire lever and hook that and reinstall that rim strip over those spoke nipples, making sure that that tube isn't going to get punctured on the inside of that from those spoke nipples. And usually most people don't carry 2 tubes, so once you do 2, you're calling for help. So relocate where your stem is, and like I always say, just start at that stem and then take your bead 2 and insert onto that rim just the first side of that tire. So it looks a lot like that. You still have that tire bead 1 exposed, bead 2 is hooked on your rim. And then you're going to go to your new tube that you have in your bag, because you watch this video and you're going to be prepared. Undo your tube, go back to your frame pump or your CO2 cartridge. You're going to reinstall, insert that stem, and give your tube some pumps in order to get it kind of inflated with air. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come back to your rim, and what I like to do is peel that tire all the way over without peeling it all the way off. Insert your stem all the way down, and then come over and pull that bead 1 back over that tube. Insert your tube all the way around your tire, all the way up to the top tread of that tire. All the way around until you got something that looks like that. And then again, start at the stem and take your thumbs and pinch with your fingers on the backside of the rim. Pinch that bead 1 back over, and if you set it here, it helps a little bit. And when you get to this point on that wheel, some road bike tires, you really got to work over that bead. And when you do that, you want to make sure you don't fold that tube in and under so your tube is exposed. And if that happens and you go to pump up to full pressure, you're going to have another blowout. And that's not any fun, especially when you're out on the road again, because then you're stuck. So then you take your pump again, reinsert, and on this one I'm going to just use, since we're at the shop, we're not actually out on the road, I'm going to use a Montrager 4 pump. We got these here at the shop. They're a dual valve. Insert your field pump and pump up just a couple of pumps or whatever it takes when you're using a frame pump or a CO2 cartridge. Just enough air to kind of get that bead to set all the way around that rim, both sides. It'll still be pretty squishy, but you want to have that all the way kind of set. And like right here, it's not set, it's kind of sitting in. Take your thumbs and just peel that so you can see the bead set up on the rim. And once you do that, if you're using a CO2, you can dump the rest of the air. If you got your frame pump, you can finish pumping up to the highest pressure that you can achieve. Road bikes are going to be the toughest with a frame pump because it's such a high pressure.
On these hybrids, it's not so bad with a frame pump. CO2s are going to get a road tire to about 90 psi. A frame pump will get a road tire to about 90, maybe 100. Usually when you get a flat, it's just enough to get you back on the road. And when you're pumping, you want to just keep making sure that that bead is set and you don't have any tube exposed. So on this one I can achieve full pressure. I'm going to remove my pump by pulling straight down on that stem. That way you're not going to cut a Schrader valve, or you're not going to pull that valve all the way out. Reinsert your cap. And then here's kind of the fun part when you're out on the road, when you're by yourself, is getting that wheel back on. So I usually kneel next to the bike, grab the seat, roll my wheel in, and then hook right here on that bottom gear of your cluster, and then kind of roll that bike forward, pull it back into your dropout, retighten up that nut until your quick release lever is about parallel to the ground. And then open that up, and you want to have a little bit of effort to shut that. And the best thing to placement to have it is about straight up on your frame. If your frame doesn't let you, you want to bring that backwards so that you can't hook it on any grasses or anything like that. If it's sitting like that, you can be driving and then your wheel is loose in your frame. So you always want to make sure that this lever is facing backwards. And then come back up to the bike, rehook up your brakes. Make sure all your springs on your brakes are set. You want to check your brakes, make sure they're operating correctly. And it's never a bad idea to re-release that lever. Make sure that's all the way down in the dropouts, and then retighten that up. And that right there, my friends, is how you change a flat tire. If you have any questions, stop in at Jake's Bikes, talk to me or Jake. We'll set you up with the right kit that you need. Thank you very much.